And you mentioned being hopeful. So the theme of the podcast is really just trying to help people navigate their anxiety and existentialism because there's lots of things to be pessimistic about right now. But you recently gave a TED talk about why you're optimistic about the future. And I was hoping that maybe you can just give us a few things to consider in order to help us to be a little bit more optimistic about the future as well.
Yeah. So I realize that optimism is kind of a temperament that varies from person to person, and some people find it much easier to be naturally optimistic, and others are a little bit more anxious. So what I would say is we have an obligation to be as optimistic as we possibly can.
Mhm.
And
Agreed.
that one of the reasons why we want to be optimistic is because it's a very complicated world, and anything really good in this world is going to be complicated. It's not going to happen accidentally, inadvertently. It will only happen if we can kind of picture it and conceive it and believe that it's possible. So that work of imagination, of kind of imagining this world and then believing that it's possible, that's necessary to make it happen. And so we need to be optimistic, have optimistic visions of a future that we desire in order to make it happen. It's much more likely to happen if we can imagine it first and believe that it's possible. And so optimism plays a role in creating the future that we want. The way I often shorthand it is that our future is basically going to be built by optimists because they are the ones who are imagining it and believing it's possible, and they're going to build it. So if you want to play a role in the future, you want to be as optimistic as possible.